What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to my channel. I'm Roxora, and today we're talking about my experience in the set champs that I did yesterday. I don't know when I guess I'll post this, but again, over the weekend. And I got spoilers. I got second. So that was really awesome. I got second again. Unfortunately, lost in the finals, and I'll talk about that. And obviously, still a great accomplishment. Got the card and everything. Added it to my lovely collection of set champ promos. But still kind of hurts to lose in the finals again. Of course, the moment I start recording, Cookie's here. But yeah, this is the first really big tournament that has happened for me since the bans. And I figured I'd take this opportunity again to talk about my experience playing after the bans, as well as an analysis of the meta. So obviously, I'm just going to go through my tournament, the rounds, and kind of what was going on, as well as just discussing the general meta. And maybe that will help other people if they're figuring out what they want to take to set champs. Yeah. If this is of value to you and you enjoy this kind of content, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Again, I've really not done too much Lorcana gameplay videos. I'm mostly talking about conceptual stuff and meta analysis and things like that. Deck building and whatnot, and card assessment. But again, always looking for kind of what the community is kind of interested in. And yeah. So this was at the store that I regularly attend for like weekly events or, just kind of day to day. And it was a great time. It was about a 30-player tournament. There's actually also a Flesh and Blood tournament at this event, so it was a little crowded, but again, they were able to manage it, which was nice. The judge for this event is somebody that works with Ravensburger pretty closely, which was nice. So they obviously knew what they were doing, but they also adhered to the rules pretty strictly or I guess the directions from Ravensburger, which are still kind of lacking, which a lot of people have been talking about. So there's a thing that particularly got me in this tournament, and some other stuff. So yeah. But it was still a good time. So again, not trying to dunk too hardly on Ravensburger. But yeah, as for the deck that I decided to bring was very similar to this. There's one change that I made, but this is the first place list from Stockholm that happened last week at the time of this recording. And everybody kind of knew that the tournaments that happened last weekend, the big tournaments in this tournament in Stockholm, the Ravensburger event, and I think there was also a tournament in Southside Gaming down in South Florida. Don't quote me on that, but like things like that. Some larger tournaments definitely set the tone for these upcoming set champs. And yeah, I looked at this list and I thought this was really, really cool. There's a lot of key things in here that I liked. Still some things that made me nervous going into the tournament. I had been testing a list like this, very, very similar to DKP's list. I believe this person is also someone that has kind of studied alongside or kind of play tested alongside of DKP, so that all makes sense. But yeah, definitely was interested in this list post ban still, even though this list did run Hiram Flaversham before the bans. It didn't quite need it. In fact, it ran 2 to 3 copies even with it in the format, and that kind of presented some challenges that I'll talk about. But post ban, I think this deck is great, as again it's just kind of the main control, like the premier control deck. If you want to play control, this is probably the list that you should be looking at. Sapphire Steel's pretty much fallen off. I don't really consider Ruby Amethyst control. Yeah. So anyways, obviously this is just your what we would expect from a Ruby Sapphire deck post ban. Tipo, Sail, Maui, both of the Mauis, Tamatoas, Pirate's Life, Be Prepared, and Manners. Obviously, how far will go, in my opinion, is actually one of the best cards in this list. It's actually one of the cards that I was looking for most often in my games, which I'll talk about. So yeah. What do I like about this list? So number one is the two super goofs. So I also recently, I won't bring them up, but I recently acquired two enchanted super goofs, which I think is the correct number. Um, I don't think it's zero. DKP recently, I think, has been toying with cutting goofs from the list. I think that's wrong. I think two is the minimum that I would want to run for this list. It's just super good into Smee and other kind of aggressive characters, and you really just kind of need it to kind of finish off the game sometimes. Also, just having a certain threshold of 4 cost cards. So this list is cut down on Grammatala, but like how far I'll go, Grammatala and Goofy are the 4 cost things that you really want to be doing. Manor is not often a card that I'll just jam on turn 4, or sorry, on turn 3 if I have turn 2 ramp, unless of course I'm against something like Blurple or Ruby Sapphire or Steel Song or something like that. There's certain cases where I'll jam a Manor, but again, most of the time this list wins by playing to the board, and Goofy is one of the cards that does that pretty well. Just getting to challenge super early. Not a lot of cards can eat it or kind of best it in a challenge on turns 2 and on turns 3 and 4. And so a lot of times that means that your opponent is either going to have to challenge into it, which is good for you, or it means that they kind of have to let it live or not quest. And all of these scenarios are good for you, again, in the right matchups. Obviously, in the Ruby Sapphire mirror doesn't do a whole lot, which again, if you're trying to account for the Ruby Sapphire mirror, then again, the cutting down on some goofs is probably a good thing to consider. So again, I don't think it's a 4 of, but I also don't think I would run less than 2. So again, I think 2 or 3 is probably where I would stay with the goofies for the foreseeable future. What else do I like about this list? I love the addition of Donald Duck and All Is Found. Both of these cards performed quite well for me in my tournament run. Donald Duck, absolutely. And there was, I think, 1 or 2 moments where All Is Found was good, I think, in the matchup. So All Is Found is particularly good against Green Steel. So All Is Found, 5-cost song, put up to 2 cards from your discard into your Inkwell, face down and exerted. And why is that good? So the big issue with Green Steel is not the fact that they discard your hand. In fact, again, Harem was really the only card that helped you not do that. And that was only if they didn't have a Diablo. Now, the game plan has kind of become ramp up as fast as possible, let them discard your hand, and then just hopefully you have better top decks, right? So you play All Is Found, and all of a sudden you can just jam Be Prepared, Hades, Sisu, Tamatoas, and Mauis very, very easily. And you don't really care. You've kind of recuperated the cards that they've had you discard. Now you don't have to discard as many cards. You wipe their board, and now you're in just a winning spot. Donald Duck kind of performs the same function, right? It's another card that lets you gain an ink advantage. But the big thing about it is that it's a character and not an action. So a lot of times Pete is a problem, as well as Ursula Deceiver. Donald Duck is a card that evades both of those effects while also being an inkable 2 questing character that you can just kind of play if you don't have anything else to do. So another one of the big things, both in the Ruby Sapphire mirror and also just in general, like against aggro decks, or just again in general, the thing that you want to be able to do is kind of close out the game. So if you've gotten to the point where your opponent's not doing a whole lot, Donald Duck's a great card to just put out there. It quests for 2. It can also challenge pretty well. Right, and then again, if it gives you a little bit of extra ink later in the game, awesome. But yeah, just a really great card all around. Really, again, happy with those numbers. I don't think I would want to go up on more, but again, I think I really like the numbers there. Tamatoa has continued to be a good card. A lot of people at my shop lamenting after they bought their Tamatoas and then to play in their Popsicle, Fortisphere, Hiram decks, And then when it got banned, everyone was lamenting, going, "Oh my goodness, I just spent all this money on my Tamatoas. I hate this, yada yada." And I was comforting everybody, saying, "Hey guys, don't worry. Tamatoa is probably still going to be a really good card, and surprise, surprise, it is." It's again kind of like a better Hiram, as it grabs back two pops. If it grabs back two popsicles, it has essentially drawn you two cards. And here that's really good, as opposed to Hiram, as with the popsicles, it was very awkward with Hiram in this deck, because a lot of the times you're using Goofy, Tala, and Maui's to trade into things, and then you want to heal them with your popsicles to keep them on board. Obviously, you want to continue to have those characters in play for as long as possible. And so if I had a popsicle in play and I played a Goofy or a Maui, and I had a Hiram in hand, it was a very difficult decision, as I kind of had to weigh the costs of, do I heal up my character and risk not having another popsicle for my Hiram, because again, we are only running the 4 popsicles as fodder for Hirams in the previous versions of the deck, right? So here Tamatoa is a little bit better, as you can just play the popsicles, heal them, use them to heal characters freely, right? There's no reason not to, and then you grab them back with Tamatoa, and you can use them again for that exact same purpose. So the popsicles, and the Tamatoas work so much, almost just as good in this deck for card advantage as Hiram did. Again, I really do not miss Hiram in this list. It doesn't feel any amount weaker in many cases. This might be a hot take. I think it's stronger. Again, a little bit of exaggeration there. Again, Hiram was quite a powerful card, but again, I don't think this deck misses it quite as much as Sapphire Steel. Going back to a kind of Dottledock and being a character that kind of has an action type effect. Hades, Infernal Schemer, is a card that has seen an uptick in play in a variety of decks. Obviously, Blurple has seen an uptick as well, which we'll talk about. But also, Hades in here is great, as again, Pete is a nasty card against this deck if we're trying to play Be Prepared. And so there's a lot of cases where, your opponent plays Pete thinking that they're safe, and you can play a Hades to kind of counteract a big play. Has been pretty impressive in Steel Song matchups, Green Steel, right? Just all of these cases. And then again, a really, really powerful card to just play and quest for 2 with. Also of note, is really good against Half Sharks as well, right? So having extra answers to Half Sharks is nice, in addition to the Let It Goes that are pretty standard in this list, right? Let It Go is a card that has been in this list for a while now. And yeah, and then 2 Sisus. DKP was previously on 4 in his original list. I think maybe went down to 3. I know some people have tried out different kinds of board wipes, like Scar. Scar I tested with as well, but again, I think the 2 and 2 with Hades and Sisu is the right configuration. And yeah, I like Sisu as well without Ice Block is not as powerful as it was. It's really only good in the hyper aggressive matchups or against like decks running Genie and things like that. Right, things where all right, I'm going to be able to land the Sisu and it's going to be a pretty impactful card. There was a lot of games where I jammed a Sisu and it did wipe my opponent's board and felt very satisfying. But there were also some matchups where I just played it and I was like, here it is, it quests for 3. Which again is still fine. It's a big character, big threat, and again only 2 copies, so that's fine. But yeah, again, Sisu I think without Ice Block and with some of the not Ice Block, also the Sapphire Coil, right? So without those capabilities, Sisu becomes just a little bit worse. It's just like a little bit less consistent of a card, which is unfortunate, but that's totally fine. And then of course the 4 manners. Now, what do I not like about this list? There's one thing that I did not like about this list that I decided to do and cut. Well, so actually there's a couple actually. I'll talk about, but they're not. A couple of them are not changes that I made. So the number one thing that I don't like about this list is the Maui's Fishhook. I still don't really see the value in it. There's a couple of things that make it good against manners, right? So Maui, Hero to All, you play that and you already have a Fishhook and you can take out manners pretty easily. And then also just evasive, giving it evasive so that you can challenge into things like Genie. Um, that's about all I see this card doing. There's not really a lot of cases where really making usage of it. I guess like also you can play it and give Tipo the +3 strength, and maybe take out some things. But yeah, the big thing is this, there's no way to cheat it out. Sorry, there is a way to cheat it out. There is Tamatoa, but again, I don't really think that's worth it. And again, in terms of the manner, if I were to really want to run a card to tech against that, I would probably just use Hideaway. Hideaway or Cusco. Honestly, Cusco might be better at this point because again, we can just play it out and we can kind of use the ink ability. So like Cusco would be a card that I'd be a little bit more interested in if I were trying to tech for McDuck Manners. As for like evasive characters, I'm not concerned at all. Genie was never really a problem for me in most cases. Either Sisu answers it, you wipe the board with Be Prepared, or you use again one of your Hades or Let It Go effects to answer it if you really really need to. But yeah, a lot of times I like and also I might add a lot of the Genie decks that I faced as well were slow, were quite slow. They were not really putting on as much pressure as I would have expected, even though again, Genie is the preferred case over Rabbits if you're trying to put more pressure on your opponent. So yeah, I think a lot of people have commented on the Genie versus Rabbit debate and have kind of talked about how Rabbit is just kind of better. Because it draws more cards. Right. Rabbit is better as it draws more cards. If it's especially if it's answered by things like Sisu, right. So if you look at that in comparison to Genie, right, Genie just draws you one card, then dies to Sisu, right, and is kind of lackluster there. So yeah, maybe that's something. I don't know. I'm not really looking too hard at the Amethyst decks right now. I've kind of moved away from just jamming all the Amethyst decks. Focusing more on this deck and yeah, having a good time with it. So yeah, sorry. Let's kind of other things that I want to comment on in this list is the -1 on Grammatala and Develop Your Brain. You have to make room. So one thing, this is a 61 card deck. That was the reason why so in my list I decided to the only change that I made was to cut the Fishhook. I kept the 3 Tala and the 3 Develop Your Brain. And someone was talking to me about why not just run the 4th Develop. It's free. I don't think it's free. Right. So I think I would probably want to, just keep this as is. But, I don't know, maybe if I decide that All Is Found isn't necessary, I put back a Develop or a Tala. I don't have much to comment on there. It's tough. Because the -1 Develop makes your Maui Shark a little bit worse. And again, Tala is just a really important card in this deck as, you just kind of need to be able to keep the cards flowing as well as just have bodies on board. So, yeah, it is what it is. So again, they decided to, Right Hammer decided to cut these to make space for the things like Donald Duck and All Is Found. And again, I do think these Donald Duck, All Is Found, and Hades really, really help. But again, I definitely don't think the Fishhook. I didn't miss the Fishhook at all. So yeah, good. I'm glad I cut on that. I think that's pretty replaceable. The other minor thing that I'll add is I did run 3 Tamatoas. I'm wondering if I could cut down to 2 and still be good. I don't know. So yeah, that's a big point of contention for me is the number of Tamatoas. I don't think I want 4. It's somewhere between 2 and 3. It's very close. So anyways, I don't want to spend too much time talking about just this list. This list is pretty complicated to mess around with. There's again a lot of different things that you can include. But again, the things that I would definitely not change is like the 4 How Far I'll Go, the Visions, and some of the core all the things that you see as 4 ofs are core cards that I would definitely not mess around with, as well as the Super Goof. And then some of the other things you could kind of, the Let It Goes as well, and then otherwise you can kind of mess around with it. So let's talk about actually how my tournament went, and then I'll kind of interject with kind of my comments on the decks that I played against, because again, I'm trying to also kind of interject some meta conversation here. So the first deck I played against was a local player. Again, I should mention I don't have their lists. I don't like this. Unfortunately, this is one of the things I was going to comment on. I'll comment on it now, I guess. I had played in many set champs before where they just didn't require deck lists. This one did. I think that we just need to formalize that of like if you're doing deck lists or not, like that should be a consistent thing across all tournaments, because I had to kind of haphazardly submit my deck list, which again worked out fine, but yeah, just making that known. But also, I think especially once you get to the top cut, so even in the quarters, finals, and semis, did not have any information about their deck lists. I knew generally at that point what a lot of people were playing, but yeah, I think I would prefer just to again make deck lists public. They've collected the decks. They have the deck checked. I got deck checked right once I made it to the top cut. So I don't really see a reason why they can't just make those deck lists public to people at that point. Again, the judge for this event was, not making any kind of determinations of themselves, which is fine. I'm not commenting on that. I'm just saying the rules for how a set champ is how the procedure is done kind of needs a little bit more still. So anyways, what that means is I don't have these people's deck lists. I have a good idea of most of their deck lists. So just going to show some core lists that you can find on Dreamborn. And I'll kind of interject if there is some differences in their lists, or just kind of things that they may have changed up. But generally speaking, again, this is generally what the decks were. So the first deck I played against was a local player who I knew played Steel Song. We've played many, many, many times. Their deck is pretty good. They play it very well, and they played pretty aggressively, right? So the first game was really, really rough. They went turn 1 Daisy, turn 2 Smee, turn 3 Lawrence, turn 4 Rapunzel. It's really, really hard to beat unless I have a pretty optimal hand, and I missed on Maui. I also was half asleep and goofed. So they just ended the game on turn 5 really, really fast. Super feels bad. Yeah, so that was super rough. But I was able to pick it back up in the second game. And again, a lot of that was thanks to Hades. I'm realizing I messed up. I missed something to talk about this list. What do we not see in this list that would be really important for this matchup? Brawl. We don't see Brawl in this list. Brawl has become a little bit less of a important card in Ruby Sapphire. Number one is because one of the main targets was Hiram. So now that we don't have to answer Hiram, Brawl becomes a lot less useful. Obviously, Brawl can still answer things like Genie, but Genie is often not a good target for Brawl, as if they played on turn 4 and you spend your turn 4, turn 5 dealing with the Genie, you're often not doing a lot of stuff, which is not great. And then obviously it's also an answer to Diablo. But DKP and many of the high level players figured out that against Green Steel, and I'll talk about this, I did end up playing against the Green Steel. The game plan is less about answering Diablo immediately and more about, again, ramping up towards the big heavy hitters, as I'll kind of talk about. So anyways, going back to this list, sorry for the big tangent there. This is the only matchup where I really, really miss Brawl. As again, it can help answer Daisy Duck, it can answer Rapunzel's, and then the big thing is that it answers Ariel, and Ariel is really the only a card that we really want to Brawl, as it prevents them from playing a whole new world. Now, the matchup is still quite good for Ruby Sapphire, as again, even if they do successfully play the whole new world, they're often refilling our hand, and we'll end up having more ink to use the cards that they give us, which will give us an advantage. So as I was saying, yeah, so Brawl is really the only case where it's rough to not be able to answer Ariel. Also, this deck is able to play along Game Zeus to answer the Sharks. But in this particular game, they played Pete. Like, they had a Robin Hood on board, they played a Pete, and I was able to just Hades it away. I believe something like that. So anyway, so yeah, I was able to successfully bring back the game. Also, I believe I landed an early manor. Besides Zeus, they don't really have a good way to answer the manors. And by playing a manor, it forces them to play out more characters. So again, it plays into the be prepared. So was able to pick up the second game. But yeah, obviously a split at the start is not great. The second game I picked up a pretty decisive 2-0 against Chernadogs, which is another deck that did really well. This one, I don't know if it was this list exactly, but they had it definitely was something like this. Right, they have the Ursula. Yeah, this looks very similar to their list, so this is probably close to what they had. And yeah, yes, because I had the Donald Ducks as well. So yeah, this list won the Ravensburger event, I believe, and so is picking up in popularity. A very interesting, aggressive deck, almost kind of like a combo deck as well. So you have all of the aggressive early questers. Daisy, Curse Merfolk, Lady can all quest for 2 early in the game. And then you have the Tramp to kind of help with board control. Ursula to take out the songs. Donald Duck and Kit to kind of control the board or kind of defend your threats. Obviously, Rapunzel's a nice one with all of these O4s over here, like Nala and Little John. And then at the top end, you have the Lady to get back some stuff. Cricky is really good at, again, buffing up the O4s that you have to kind of gain a big boost in board control all of a sudden. It was pretty good at taking out locations. And then at the top end, the top end is the Big Tramp and the Chernabog. I keep wanting to say Chernadog. And both of these, if you are successfully land a Tramp, you can draw and discard a bunch of cards and then essentially get a free Chernabog. So this list looked pretty scary for Ruby Sapphire. From my point of view, as they have a lot of ways to flood the board. And then if I flood the, if I successfully answer their be prepared, successfully answer their board with be prepared, they can easily slam a Chernabog. And if I don't have the answer for the Chernabog right away, it presents a really big issue. However, in the first game, I believe I had access to the two copies of Super Goof, which against all of the O4s like Nala and Little John and Lady, I think I removed a Lady with the first Goofy, right? And then they played something like a Lilo, and I answered again. I think they had an Ursula as well, and yeah, they took some songs. I think they took the Be Prepared, but they did not really have an easy way to answer the Goofies early, and so not only did they kind of maintain board control, but they also just gained a bunch of lore. So then when I started slamming manors and stuff, it just got way out of hand. So yeah, that was the first game. The second game, they played Ursula, and I believe they saw Sisu and Hades. I believe those were two of the cards that were in my hand. I had enough ink to play both of them. They did a bunch of drawing and discarding, and then they played Ursula, played Tramp, did their drawing and discarding, and then they passed the turn without playing a Chernabog. So I played my Sisu, wiped their entire board, because if you look, they're pretty weak to Sisu. The only characters here that don't die to Sisu are things like the Prince Philip, the Lady, and the Cricky, and obviously the Chernabog. But they didn't have any of those, so their entire board was wiped. And then they kept playing. I closed out the game, and afterwards, I think they told me that they kept two of the Tramp Street Smart Dog in their hand as an oopsie. So I think they messed up a little bit, which is, again, that'll happen. Players will make mistakes. There's a human error to this game. But I think, again, even if they had played a Chernabog, I think I was in a pretty good spot. One of the issues with the deck against Ruby Sapphire is that, again, since their characters are pretty fragile, or at least they don't deal damage back, sometimes, and again, this is what we saw at the Ravensburger event, is that they don't quest for their characters as much as maybe they should, or as much as maybe you would expect from an aggro deck, because again, they're trying to land the Tramp Chernobog combo. So a lot of times they just didn't quest, which I'm not saying was incorrect. It just means it kind of gave me a little bit more time to kind of deal with things. So yeah, I don't know. I still think this deck is totally fine. Sorry, I guess I wasn't commenting on like either of these decks just yet, but I think both of these cards are fine. I think the meta is quite open. I'll mention that. Like as you can see, I have a bunch of decks up here. I played against a bunch of decks. It was really nice to have kind of like this wide open meta instead of playing against Ruby Sapphire, Sapphire Steel every single round. So the bans were effective and it was a great time. My next match was a mirror. But they, I think, had not played the matchup too much, or they had not played with the new style of deck. I think they were telling me that they had really only played the traditional Ruby Sapphire list and had not played this version. And they had some weird things. I think they had the scars. I think they were more closely resembling what Moyen's list looks like, if you're familiar with Moyen, which is fine. But yeah, the issue is that while the Scar was decent against locations, they were successfully able to answer manners. I had the meta breakers and the things like Hades. Hades was again very strong, as just having extra answers to Tamatoa and Maui was really nice. But I think besides that, our lists were mostly the same, and we both kind of played stuff out great. Yeah. So I think here I've got 2 splits and 1 2-0, so I'm actually doing pretty all right. But it means that I definitely can't get swept. Spoilers, I was never swept, which is nice. But anyways, after that, I had the matchup that was going to give me the most trouble, which is a green-purple list. This is close to their list, I believe. It definitely looks close. The major difference is that I don't believe I ever saw Ursula or Clarabelle at the top end. This particular player here, when Wisp attacks, decided to go with Elsa. Big Elsa. What is the card? I forget what Big Elsa is called, but Big Elsa. And that card presented a lot of trouble for me, which I can kind of talk about. But yeah, I don't think they had the Clarabelles. Yeah. They had the Curse Merfolks. Yeah, that's another thing. So Curse Merfolk presented a big problem for me. Anyways, this is still, again, a really strong deck. Obviously, just exactly what you would expect from a Amethyst deck. Right, all the powerful 1-drops, the Mim Merlin package, Elsa and Cricky to kind of control the board. Friends on the other side and library for card advantage. Some interesting additions here that, again, I remember this person having. Lyle Tiberius Rourke, pretty good into the removal from my deck. Right, Ruby, Sisu and Be Prepared, right? You wipe their board, but you lose a bunch of lore in the process, which gives this deck more time to kind of recuperate. Also notably giving a character Reckless, so you can give cards like Sisu or Tamatoa Reckless, which again further delays the lore gain from the Ruby Sapphire deck, and just a really powerful card for tempo or just kind of controlling the game in general. I've talked about Lyle so many times, I feel like, and still I feel like not enough respect is put on this card. That's just me. Again, I really like the card. I'm not saying it's super crazy, but yeah. And then the Mother Knows Best, which again is not really seen too much play recently, but with the rise of Maui Shark, as we'll see, as there's 2 main decks running Maui Shark, and this deck really has a tough time dealing with it. So Mother Knows Best is a great way to do that. Just kind of, they play the Shark, you bounce it, and just makes it harder for them to gain that tempo back. Yeah, obviously it doesn't permanently answer the Shark. It just, again, delays it and gives this deck a little bit more time. Presumably by the time that it comes back down, hopefully you have a faster clock or you're closer to winning the game. But yeah, the Shark is definitely this deck's biggest weakness. So I believe I don't remember the first game or second. I think the first game I won, I just played 3 sharks. So they had a mother knows best, but I had 2 sharks on board. They Elsa'd them, and then I played a third shark, and then they bounced right, the third shark, but then I still had 2 sharks on board. So it just created a huge problem for them. So that's how I was able to win that first game. And then the second game, it was just I don't even remember. Just I wasn't able to fully control the board. Yeah. So split against them, and yeah, again, not their full list, but again, something like this is a really nice choice. I'd probably play something similar to this if I were to play Emerald Amethyst. So another split. I forget where that put me. It put me in something like 9th or 10th or something like that. So it meant that I needed to win my next couple of games in order to make top cut. And it's really interesting that I ended up playing against another local player, buddy Mark, and it's always so rough when you face against somebody that and you know that it's a win and in. And it's like, ah, dang. In some cases, it's nice because presumably one of you makes it. But anyways, they were playing Blurple. They had picked up the deck and had been messing around with it. And again, Blurple has seen a big rise recently. Not really sure why. Again, not like saying it's like the best deck or anything. It's just I think people have figured out how to make usage of it. The Iago is a nice card that is a little bit freed up as Sapphire Steel is less prevalent. You still have Amber Steel and Green Steel to deal with. But yeah, there's a lot more cases where you can play Iago and it can kind of take over the game. Again, Hades is another big one, is that now this deck just runs 4 copies of Hades instead of Elsa, and you just have this really powerful threat that also answers the board. Can ramp up to it pretty nicely, and then again you still have the awesome McDuck Manor as a nice threat as well. So again, I don't think this is their exact list. I don't think they're on Gastons or Cuscos. I don't remember if they were playing Elsas themselves. I don't remember if they were playing Bells. I think they were. Again, it definitely looks something like this. They had also played again a couple of copies of Finders Keepers. They definitely played that against me. And again, this list is really awesome. It draws a lot of cards. It plays a lot of really powerful characters. The issue against my deck, in Ruby Sapphire, is that they draw a lot of cards, but they don't really present enough of a threat. Again, if I can successfully deal with the manners, or if I can kind of outpace the manners, it's pretty tough. I'll also add that, again, if they ever miss on removal for Maui Shark, it's pretty bad. But yeah, I think them as well. I don't remember if he was playing. Oh, it must have also been playing Crabs. Yeah, this list is not playing Crabs, which is crazy to me. I definitely want to play some Crabs, as again, that's another great way to help challenge manners and other just more powerful characters. So yeah, I don't think this is exactly what their list was like, but yeah, I was able to 2-0 the Blurple deck pretty well. Again, I think they just missed on some stuff early. Like, another big issue with this deck is if you don't hit the ramp on 2, notice there's no 1-drops in this list. I think my opponent had some 1-drops. I actually don't know. Right, but besides Popsicle on turn 1, there's nothing that this deck does on turn 1. So you really, really need the ramp on 2 in order to play your Genie, your Iagos, or your Merlins. And then otherwise, you're not really doing a whole lot. So that's a really potential issue with the deck. So yeah, so against me, right, I just jam a mana, or I just play how far I'll go. And I am just not really pressured early. And so yeah, they have some powerful cards like Hades to answer my my Sharks and everything. But again, I just have so much. Ruby Sapphire just gets so much time to kind of do whatever they think they need to do in this matchup. So yeah, that's a potential issue. So against me, I think they even played like Finders Keepers and Friends in the same turn. But then again, they just still didn't apply any pressure. So again, they had a bunch of cards. They had a bunch of cards in hand. I think they had way more cards than me most of the game. But again, just that's the issue that I see against the Ruby Sapphire matchup. But again, against other decks like Ruby Amethyst, or maybe something like Green Steel, it's a little bit better as you can just draw so many cards. So, anyways, I'm not commenting on this list or their choice against or how they played the matchup against me. They all did fine. I'm just saying that's what I noticed about the matchup. So again, maybe if you're going up against Ruby Sapphire and you're playing Blurple, maybe you prioritize the manners more, which I think they were doing. Or maybe you try to find some other way to attack the Ruby Sapphire matchup. Gaston might be another one as well. Gaston might be a good card. Is like it's a powerful threat that you can play that draws you a card, and is difficult to answer. Right, it doesn't get answered by Brawl. It doesn't get answered by Sisu. You have to either let it go or Hades it. I guess it also just dies once it quests. But again, still. So yeah, I don't know. I definitely think Blurp is a really good deck, but I do think that the Ruby Sapphire matchup is something that I'm not as a Ruby Sapphire player, I am not worried about going up against Blurple. So maybe I'm just good at knowing the matchup, or I don't know. Yeah. Anyways, so with the 2-0, that's actually ended up putting me into second place, I believe. So it put me into second place going into the top 8, which was awesome, because most of the time that means I'm going to be going first, unless of course I make it to the finals and play against the first seed, because again, usually in a top cut scenario, the first seed plays the 8th seed and the first place goes first because they were the higher seed. Second place faces the 7th place player, and again, goes first because they're playing a higher seed, and so on. And so as long as you are the higher seed player, whatever matchup you're going into, you'll be on the play. Which is really, really important, because this turns into, instead of the 2-game format, it turns into a best of 3 scenario. Unfortunately, again, the judge of this event was, again, strictly following instructions from Ravensburger, and apparently they do not have that in the rules, and so they confirmed, or they kind of followed up and asked the rules manager, and the rules manager was like, "Yep, it should be a die roll," which to me is ludicrous. Apparently, it was in the instructions and was removed. I don't know what's going on. So again, I think that there's no reason why it shouldn't be based on seeding. A lot of the complaints about top cut or kind of set champs is the drawing into the top cut. So playing for seeding is something that really disincentivizes people, right, from drawing into the top cut. And our scenario, I think there was, the top 4 players just drew in. So yeah, that's just like a whole crazy thing that I think doesn't make any sense. Again, I'm not blaming the judge for following this procedure. That was up to them. And again, I think if the official rules were different, they would have handled it differently. So again, I just don't understand why the rules are this way and why there's this lack of adjustments being made. So yeah. So anyways, that's unfortunate, as it means that now my seeding means nothing and I'm kind of dependent on the die roll. So anyways, we decide to play through the top. One of my opponents decided not to do a split or anything for the prizing, so we're playing for packs and everything. The other thing is that there's only one playmat up for grabs, which is another thing that I did not realize they changed. In any case, I played against Green Steel in the quarterfinals. And again, a very, very strong player, very, very strong deck. Still a fantastic choice. However, this is a really good matchup for Ruby Sapphire, the way the deck currently plays out. Again, if they have the Diablo Shift, it's actually not the end of the world. Or if they even have Beast, right? The deck, as long as Ruby Sapphire is able to ramp up using the tools that I mentioned before, the All Is Found, How Far All Goes, and the Donald Ducks, and all that stuff, You should be able to ramp up towards your big sweepers. And the big thing about this deck is that it doesn't win very fast. A lot of times, Green Steel wins by emptying out your opponent's hand and just kind of having characters in play and just questing out. If you look at a lot of characters here, only a couple of them quest for 2. None of them quest for 3 or like for more than 2. And a lot of them quest for 1. All right, so you got Beast and Pete as your main ones. And then even though they have Prince John, a lot of times they're not questing with Prince John because they're worried about Goofies and Mauis. So yeah, a lot of times they're just leaving the Prince Johns unexerted. So yeah, really, even if they are causing you to discard cards and doing the thing, they're not winning the game super fast. So as long as they're able to successfully get cards into your Inkwell, you should be able to land a sweeper pretty decisively. And again, this is where the Hades came into play really well as again the Sisus. So a lot of times they would again get my hand really low. I would Sisu, or I'm sorry, they would play a beast. I would Hades away the beast. They'd still be drawing off of Diablo, but again, then I would draw into Be Prepared or Sisu and answer the rest of their board. And then they'd be forced to play out more stuff. Again, if I swept the board again, a lot of times the game was just over from there. And yeah, again, they just did not close out the game fast enough. Not once in this matchup did I have to play a Pirate's Life to kind of prevent them from winning. Right, so that should tell you a lot of what you need to know. So yeah, the first game, like, yeah, I just top decked very well and just, wiped their board, enough, and then played some manners. They did have, I believe this player had some copies of Along Came Zeus, which were effective at answering my manners. But again, that slowed them down enough. And again, just they did not have enough finishing power to close out the game. Another interesting thing about Ruby Sapphire now is besides the sails and the popsicles, this deck really doesn't draw cards, so to speak. So it's actually pretty good against Diablo in that develop your brain, envision the future, how far it'll go, and sorry, Grammatala. All 4 of these effects look at cards and put them into your hand. They don't draw, so they don't trigger Diablo. So those effects are really good, allowing you to dig deeper into your deck, find the cards that you need without giving your opponent so many extra cards. A lot of times I was able to wait to play my popsicles and just obviously didn't play my sails later in the game if it meant giving them Diablo cards. So yeah, so that's a really nice thing. And yeah, so I the first game was pretty awesome in that I, again, was just able to continuously find the sweepers or the heavy hitters that I needed, just kind of topped, once I got into top decking after they discarded my hand, was able to just kind of draw the cards in the right order and find the tools that I needed to wipe the board, put down a clock, and win the game. Game 2 was rough for them as they had their turn 1 play was Hidden Cove. They had no play on turn 2. And I don't remember what their turn 3 play was. If it was anything, it might have been a Pete or something like that, right? So clearly not what they wanted. And again, that just gave me so much time to successfully set up and take them out. There was also a time where they played Pete, and I just played, again, the Donald Duck. Instead of playing the How Far I'll Go that was in my hand. So having access to both of those effects was super good. So they played the Donald Duck. I played the Donald Duck and they were just like flabbergasted at how effectively I was able to play through it. So yeah, that was such a huge factor in just, they played the Pete thinking I won't be able to ramp, and I just do it anyways. So yeah, awesome to get that matchup out of the way. Again, still a really strong deck. Interesting that, again, the top 8 was something like there was a green steel, amber steel, 2 ruby sapphires, a green purple list, and a ruby amethyst. Those were the ones that I remember. I'm not sure if I remember what the other ones were. There might have been a blurple. But the point goes is that that's a really, really diverse top cut. So really love to see that. My next match was against something like this. I'll kind of talk about how it looked like they had the Lumieres and the Tremaines. And I believe they played the library as well, but there was one pivotal card that I never saw. This is so Ruby Amethyst is back. It's never dead apparently. Just it's always going to be a prevalent factor. It saw a little bit of a downtick again during the Sapphire Steel craze, but here it's still back and kicking. And there's been a little bit of a development with Peter Pan, Shadowfinder, and Maui Shark. So you play out Peter Pan. This is just a really effective card to play with Genie Iagos. As they just answer Diablo, they just give you a really good tempo plan. Peter Pan's just like a fine card by itself, right? Can challenge something, take out like a Chernobog's followers, or something like that, and then sing friends. So Peter Pan's a card that I'm totally fine existing, but then also it makes a really, really powerful threat with Maui Shark. So one of the things that makes Maui Shark a little bit less good than it normally would be is it can be a slow play. It can be a slow tempo play, as it comes down and doesn't really do a whole lot, right? It's looming on the battlefield, looming in play, but it's not able to challenge because it doesn't have rush. Well, what if it did have rush? All right, so Peter Pan giving your other evasives rush means that now he can challenge right away, get that action back, get something like a brawl, a Finder's Keepers, anything like that. So yeah, this combination is pretty powerful. As if your opponent has a Peter Pan on board, they look like they're gonna have 6 ink next turn. What do? Right? If you quest out, you give them a free shark challenge. If you don't do that, right, you're not questing, and right, and so on and so on and so on. So yeah, really interesting innovation from Ruby Amethyst. However, I cannot confirm that this was in their deck because I never saw it. There were many times where they had the Peter Pans. They had like 2 in play at one point. And they definitely played some Genies. The card that I did see a lot was Lady Tremaine, which is effective against Ruby Sapphire a little bit, as if I just play an empty shark, they can kind of get me back with the Tremaine. But yeah, I never once in the semifinals saw a half shark. They had a pretty rough draw. It looked like they drew a ton of uninkables. This deck looks like it's not that bad on uninkables. It's 8, 12, 13, 14 ish. What? 6, 8, 11, 12. So 12 uninkables. So not crazy. Getting up there. Again, more. Well, that I should say that is about the same. That's the same uninkable count that I have, right? So yeah, that's fine. I really miss the days when this deck could just run 8 uninkables, the 4 Halfaro goes, and the 4 Be Prepareds. But unfortunately, we're no longer in that age. We kind of need the Sisus and the Hades, or at least some more powerful top end cards. So yeah, 12 seems fine. But yeah, I guess against me, they just whiff, right? They played the Lumieres were pretty strong. They played like Lumiere, and then they played Peter Pan, and then they played Genie. Right? That means that my Sisu does not answer them, but obviously I can just be prepared. So that was interesting. But also kind of like Blurple, the deck draws a lot of cards, gets a lot of value going, but doesn't really put enough pressure. So again, not once did I have to play Pirate's Life against this deck to try and prevent them from winning. There's just so many cards in this deck that don't really perform well. Right, Brawl, not that impressive. Obviously, they don't really want to be prepared me, unless, because then I can just play some manners. Notably, this deck is no longer playing Maui Here to All, right? So again, I don't remember if I saw that from them, so I can't confirm that they didn't have Mauis, but that's the trend of Ruby Amethyst, right? They're playing the Sharks instead as their big heavy hitter. So yeah, that's really interesting that as long as I was able to answer the Peter Pans, they didn't have a rush card to kind of take care of my McDuck manners. So yeah, kind of like with the Blurple deck, both of these decks are really good. I'm not dunking on them, but as a Ruby Sapphire player, I am not worried about playing against them. So I don't know what that means. Does that mean that the deck is still cracked? Maybe. I think so. Obviously, I'm a little bit biased, but yeah. So that was my experience playing as this deck. Again, I think my opponent just got a little bit unlucky, and just didn't really have the tools that they needed. So yeah, kind of swiftly took care of the Ruby the Amethyst player. Again, not knocking anyone. A lot of people played really well, and also I might add that at this point we're like 8 hours in. Like I think it was started at 11, and this is at like 7 o'clock at night. So yeah, so fatigue was definitely a factor, and that's what I'll want to talk about in my finals match, which was against the same Emerald Amethyst player from the Swish portion. The first big thing is they won the die roll, so that means I get to go first, which is really annoying because I was second seed. I think they were 8th or 7th, which again, if we were going by the system that we probably should be going by, I would be going first, and I would have just that much better percentage. Again, still, I think they had the tools that they needed for the matchup: the Lyle, the Elsas, and the Mother Knows Best. Right, so all those cards were pretty annoying against me. So yeah, so I barely lost in the first game. I was making a comeback, but unfortunately did not have... They got up to too high of a lore total, and I wasn't able to continuously answer the cards that they were putting into play. And then game 2 was just rough, where they had the Curse Merfolk. So again, the Curse Merfolk really put a hamper on me, as usually you'd be able to recuperate the cards that you lose from the Curse Merfolk with Hiram. Was not able to do that in this scenario, and unfortunately I felt compelled to answer the Curse Merfolk, because again, if they get too ahead in lore, it's pretty difficult. Maybe I would let it go, but or maybe I let the Curse Merfolks stick around. I don't think so, so I don't know. The big thing was, yeah, I just kind of messed up playing towards the end. I made a mistake of, like, I had a Maui that was damaged, and then I used my Popsicle to put it into the discard so I could gain it back with Tamatoa, but I didn't heal up my Maui, and so that was a mistake I made. Later on, I was at 18 lore, and I could have quested to 19 with a Super Goof, with a Maui Shark on board, and then I had Be Prepared next turn for the win. I decided to not quest with the Goofy, because I was fearing, okay, if they answer both Goofy and Shark, then I have no way to win the game. So I said, all right, I'm going to keep Goofy readied, so that, you know, if they answer the Shark, right, then I have the Goofy and they can't quest, or else I win the game, right? Because I'm at 18 lore. And then if they answer neither, then I just win the game. Then I just, or if they answer one of them, then I just quest, or I have Goofy and they can't exert a character, or else I win. Anyways, they ended up having Elsa, again, the big Elsa, which exerted both of them and created a big problem for me. I thought the game was over. I don't know if the game was officially over, but I think I conceded. I also just really wanted to go home. I was exhausted. So unfortunate that I did not take the win. Again, this is the second time that I've made it to the finals and just barely not gotten there. Again, I'm not blaming it all on the die roll thing, but that was kind of annoying. But again, still props to this player. I don't remember that. I think it was it John? No, it wasn't John. I don't remember their official name, but when Wisps attack, props to this player. I think I looked at their profile, and they've definitely had some other championships. So yeah, congrats to them. And again, still a really fun event. Again, got the card anyways. Got some booster packs that I'm gonna open up later. So yeah, very fun time. And again, still really happy with the meta. Again, a lot of people have been talking about how the meta is wide open. Other decks that I did not mention that are still quite good is Amethyst Steel. Never played against that deck, but it's still quite a strong deck. I have that built. Obviously, like, some people can still play like things like Mufasa. Was it Harlan Sweets, Kiwi Birds, Sapphire Steel Aggro is still a playable deck. I'm not sure about Diggy Hole, right? Amber Steel aggro as a deck at the moment. It's not like it's terrible. It's you could probably still play it. I'm trying to think of other decks. Zan just won a tournament with Amethyst Steel Jafar. Again, not saying that deck's cracked or it's the best deck, but again, that's another deck that you could just play and you'd be pretty fine to mess around with. There's plenty of the like location decks, the John Silver decks that are probably a little bit worse than most of these decks, but again, you could still try it out. What else? I can look back at Dreamborn and see if there's any other decks that I'm not thinking of. The point is that blue green Clarabelle control, like with Bent to My Will, like that is a deck. I don't respect that deck a ton right now, but again, it's still a deck that you can use. Hyper aggro, right? All of these decks are pretty viable. Green yellow or amber emerald discard. This is emerald aggro. Sorry, this is not what I was thinking of. But the Under the Sea control deck, right? That's a perfectly reasonable deck to play. I think that's it of the decks that like are legitimately good again, but also again there's still tons of brewing that you could do. Again, the meta is definitely much more diverse than it was a couple months ago, which is awesome to see. Again, Hiram, you will be missed. Fortisphere, not so much. Blue Steel, definitely not. Yeah. Trying to think if there's anything else that I want to talk about. I don't think so. Yeah. Definitely a fun time. I'm happy to kind of make it out and again prove myself. Again, most of the people at the store kind of know my reputation at this point. So that's all well and good. I might be I know the judge might not be. I offered to help because there was a lot of people and I offered to help. There's only one judge. I mean for 30 people that's pretty manageable, but I offered to offer my assistance. I definitely do not feel the need to kind of come to these set champs and clobber people. Obviously didn't do that because again I only got second. But anyways, enough of my rambling. That's going to do it for me. Again, what am I going to be playing in the future? If I'm playing serious, it's going to be playing this. I might mess around and now that I have my card, might mess around and try some other funny brews. Yeah. But yeah, definitely happy with the bans, definitely happy with the way the game is, and excited to play more set champs. All right, that's going to do it for me. If you guys enjoyed, remember, like, comment, subscribe. Please, please, please. It does help. And lets me know what kind of content you guys like to see. And yeah, we're looking forward to, there's some kind of announcement coming in a couple of days. There's some speculation about, like rotation and new cards or whatnot. And other kinds of things like that, as well as we should be getting Reign of Jafar spoilers for set 8 at any moment, in the coming weeks. So that's very exciting. So stay tuned for that, and I will see you guys in the next video.